It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Well, I mean, for some, we're going to have a white Christmas. And there's another shot of cold air coming all the way down to the Gulf Coast before we start to warm back up. So we'll go through all of it with you and show you who's going to have a white Christmas and why. But first, let's start with the hazards this morning. Lots of fog southeast and Gulf Coast, but it's heavy rain coming down right now in Tennessee and then up into Kentucky. Northern Plains, things are getting interesting. A lot of wind in Montana and also into North and South Dakota with high wind warnings there. You go into North Dakota and we're looking at winter storm watches and winter weather advisories because we do have a system coming down Northern Plains through the Great Lakes and again into the east, kind of giving you a hint to where we might see a white Christmas. A little bit of snow up there in the panhandle of Idaho, too, in northwest Montana. A little bit of snow in the Cascades of Washington with some wind issues scattered throughout Wyoming, Montana, Washington, Idaho. And down in Southern California, red flag warning, high fire danger for a small part there in Southern California, and wind advisories down LA to San Diego and along the Colorado River for Arizona and Nevada and a little bit of California there. 24-hour temperature change since yesterday morning to this morning. It's colder than it was. Mid-Atlantic up into the northeast. Also for parts of the Rockies into the western central plains. Warmer than it was yesterday morning in the northwest. And also parts of Arkansas, Missouri, into Kentucky and Tennessee. Severe weather this morning possible for Tennessee and a little bit of Mississippi there. And you can see the area of thunderstorms expected today, all the way from East Texas, all the way up into Florida and east central part of the United States, and even a 2% chance of tornadoes. Again, the threat's mainly this morning. That includes Nashville. So slight chance of a spin up. I don't think it's likely, but just be aware. All right, precipitation for the next 2 days ending Friday morning. Quite a bit of rain, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. Quite a bit of rain up there in northwestern Washington. Otherwise, we're talking snow for the plains and the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes as a system moves on through, even clipping a little bit of northeastern Iowa and near Chicago. So could see places up to 8 inches for some, including you in Wisconsin and up there in North Dakota and parts of the UP of Michigan. And some of that snow extends into the northeast as well. Surface for today, there you go. You see that heavy snow, North Dakota expected, and then some lighter snow moving into Minnesota, Wisconsin later on, and Michigan too. It's a mix up in New England. There's your rain. There's your thunderstorms. East Central Coast down into the southeast and into Texas. Freezing rain, Montana, South Dakota, maybe, Washington State as well, and the Cascades there. Your anomalous temperatures today, well, it's above average for the southeast ahead of the cold air that's coming. It's also warm in the west, but you see that cold air peeking in the northern plains. Surface for tomorrow. Here comes our system through the northern plains into the Great Lakes, and including the eastern Great Lakes, and heavy snow could be coming down in Wisconsin and also into North Dakota. Anomalous temperatures tomorrow. A little bit of warm air nosing into Iowa, so we're going to have a cold day today, highs near freezing here, and then it's going to warm up a little bit tomorrow, and then we get even colder on Friday. That's for Iowa. So yeah, a little bit warmer for the Central Plains, South Plains, and the West, and a lot colder up there in Montana and the Dakotas as that cold air will be coming. Surface for Thursday, well, you see the cold front from Indiana through Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, and the cold air behind that. Snow in the Great Lakes, eastern Great Lakes, mix further south, a little bit of rain, east central coast. Anomalous temperatures Friday, turning colder and below average for the Dakotas, Minnesota, upper Midwest, upper plains, central plains getting cooler, and also into Kentucky and Tennessee and down to the Gulf Coast. Temperatures, instead of being above average, are getting around near average, and they'll fall even further this weekend. Let's check it out on the GFS and show you what's going on. We're at 6 o'clock this morning, so almost 2 hours ago. It's 7:54 right now here in western Iowa. I forgot to mention that earlier. I like to timestamp it so you know where I'm coming from. All right. Heavy rain this morning, Tennessee, Nashville, up into Kentucky, and a little bit and pretty big system here for the Pacific Northwest with a lot of rain, high elevation snows even for Oregon and Washington, but that does turn to snow along the Canadian border. All right, as we go through this morning, we see our storms here weakening as they move off to the east slowly, and that's probably good news. You see that cold air coming in, mixing with the system, bringing some snow to parts of Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, our big Pacific Northwest storm moves into Canada, but some pretty heavy snows here, British Columbia, but parts of northwestern Montana. Some rain, lower elevations for the Idaho Panhandle. And as we go through the rest of the morning and into this afternoon and evening, we see our system here falling apart as it moves east, but scattered showers and storms like we talked about on the surface map. And here we see some snow, could be heavy for North Dakota. As we get to midnight tonight, that snow spreads a little further east into Minnesota. Meanwhile, snow in the northeast a little bit, especially into Maine and New Hampshire. Then as we get into the day tomorrow, here comes our little system, and it's going to move through the northern plains into the Midwest and then across the Great Lakes, upper Midwest. So like I said, a little bit of Iowa getting clipped by this system, but most of the snow in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin especially, and even near Chicago, it looks like snow. As we get into tomorrow night, a little bit of rain and snow up here in Washington, but this is our main player right here, this system, moving through the Great Lakes as we get into the day on Friday. This is Friday morning. And so you see a little bit of light snow spreading into Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, New York, all the way into New Jersey even. And another system approaching the Pacific Northwest as we get through the day Friday. This low is interesting. It's too far off the coast to be a nor'easter or anything like that, but enhancing the snow maybe a little bit from West Virginia up into Pennsylvania, New York State, even Vermont. And another little system here, light snow up here in North Dakota as we are now entering Friday. This is Friday night at midnight. So here comes Saturday as we start the weekend forecast. Windy and cold in the northeast, and that cold air getting all the way down into South Carolina, North Carolina at least, and cold air here in the Midwest. Meanwhile, a system approaching the northwest, and as we get into the day on Saturday, the cold air is still spreading into the east, and we have another system moving in. We've got rain and snow in Oregon and Washington and Northern California. The snow levels still high enough to bring rain to Boise, but snow nearby. Oh, we're not to Boise. Well, there's a little bit of rain in Boise, but the heavy snow here in parts of eastern Oregon, there's some mountains up here and through here. So we could see some accumulations, of course, and also into northern Washington. Then it does spread into Idaho with widespread snow, but a little bit of rain and then lower elevations as we go. This is a Saturday night. And then this gets us to midnight Saturday, snow in Idaho, western Montana, cold air getting further into the southeast as we get into Sunday now. And some of that cold air is starting to lift. We're starting to warm up here in the Midwest and in the plains. A little bit of rain in Montana. All right, as we get through the rest of Saturday, see just a little bit of rain and snow here, but another system for the Pacific Northwest, rain and snow, Oregon, Washington, Northern California, and that gets us to midnight Sunday night into Monday morning, and then boom, a pretty big low here, or a low getting its act together, I should say, but that's heavy snow into Wisconsin, back into Minnesota, rain a little further south. Some snow up here in Idaho. Let me back up if I can. Did we have snow in Boise? It's possible. Snow on Boise as we get into early Monday morning. Meanwhile, this low It blows up, brings heavy snow into Wisconsin. That'll move into Michigan. And rain further south, with another system approaching the Pacific Northwest. And this rain starts to pick up as we get into midnight Monday night. And so as we get into the next couple frames, this is Christmas Eve day. So heavy rain, Oregon, Washington, California, high elevation snows, like really high. And then meanwhile, we're still seeing snow. This is Christmas Eve day. So you start to get an idea who might have a white Christmas. Northern Pennsylvania into New York, certainly Michigan. The snow is clearing. Rain, Ohio, Indiana, and heavier rain as you get into Arkansas, East Texas. As we go through Christmas Eve, snow continues in New York State, Massachusetts getting snow a little bit, Vermont, New Hampshire, and even Connecticut now, and near New York City. That snow is turning to rain as we get into early morning Christmas, but still snowing, especially New York. A little bit of ice mixing in Pennsylvania, but it's rain for Pittsburgh and Columbus and Cincinnati and Louisville and Paducah and down into Birmingham and Montgomery, down to Biloxi and New Orleans. But snow here scattered in the west as we get further into Christmas Day. Snow turning to rain in parts of New England, but probably hanging on to enough snow for technically a white Christmas, even though it might be getting rained on and melting there for you in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey. And even Pennsylvania is starting to see the rain pick up as we get into Christmas night. Another system approaching the Pacific Northwest. Heavy rain along the coast, heavy snow in the Cascades. We'll just go a couple more days here. But you see rain increasing across the east. Just a massive storm here for the Northwest. Very windy along the Oregon coast, Northern California coast. Snow inland. Will it be snow for you, Boise? It looks like you could see snow, Boise, day after Christmas. Not quite a white Christmas, but Christmas season, very festive. Could be heavy snow here in Idaho, moving into Nevada and even Utah, and along the mountains of California into Oregon and Washington as well. As we are now a day after Christmas at noontime, here's the afternoon with those scattered snows traveling into Utah, Colorado, just kind of a mess up here in the Northeast. All right, let's go through our high temperatures. So back to today, high near freezing here in western Iowa, 20s and teens as you head north, 40s from the Central Plains in through New England, 50s Texas, 60s and 70s southeast, 70s to near 80 southern Arizona, 40s and 50s, mainly 50s, Central California along the Oregon coast, and then 40s and a few 50s further inland in the northwestern part of the U.S. Lows tomorrow morning getting colder. Northern Plains will be in the 20s here in western Iowa, probably low 20s. And those freezing temperatures get all the way down into Texas, all the way across the Midwest into the Northeast, and all the way back to the Cascades, where that cold air not going to quite make it into western Oregon. 40s to start the day and 50 to start the day for Phoenix, but the highs near, well, not quite, 81 for Tucson, it looks like. Very warm. Also very warm in the southeast tomorrow, but turning colder northern plains and upper Midwest, and especially on Friday. Boom, this is the coldest day on the 7-day for Iowa. Highs here only in the mid-20s, and those 30s go all the way down to Kansas City to St. Louis along I-70. And then further south, of course, we get into the 40s, and the 50s are starting to show up in the southeast, where it's going to be even colder on Saturday. Southeast really feeling the chill with 40s and 50s, although southern Florida will be spared. Warming up in West Texas here. Still warm in the desert southwest, and about the same for the northwest. Sunday, temperature is moderating a little bit for parts of the southeast, certainly warming up in the plains. Staying cold along the upper Midwest, northern plains, upper Midwest through the Great Lakes, and the Northeast get a little bit colder here Saturday to Sunday. So there's Saturday, there's Sunday, the Northeast feeling the chill. Saturday, you see the warm air coming back into the plains in the Midwest. Sunday, that's even more pronounced as Texas starts to warm back up. The desert Southwest is still staying warm, so is Florida here, but still kind of cool on Monday for Georgia. 46 for Atlanta. Tuesday 48, but warmer in the plains, warmer in the Midwest, warmer in the Great Lakes. Only the northern plains and the Northeast hanging on to the cold by the time we get into Tuesday. And yeah, most of the country, except for western Alaska, is above average. So good chance of above average temperatures. But as we've shown you, that still can mean rain and snow. In fact, above average chances of above average rain and snow across much of the country. The desert Southwest getting left out of that into New Mexico and far west Texas. What about a white Christmas? Well, I kind of gave you a hint. Northern plains through the Great Lakes into the Northeast is our best chance for a white Christmas. This is the ensemble for the GFS model, also showing a white Christmas for the mountains in the West and in California and Colorado. Now the Canadian has a little bit more of a white Christmas further south into Pennsylvania, for example, but still we're talking Northeast, Great Lakes, Northern Plains, and the mountains of the West with the best chance of a great white Christmas here. Now the European is kind of in between, but more snow on the ground in the mountains of the West, but pretty much the same areas across the Northern Plains, Midwest, into the East for that white Christmas. I think it's a good bet for most of New York, for example, most of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Looks like Wisconsin's going to have a white Christmas. Much of Michigan. Same with Minnesota, North Dakota, a little bit of South Dakota. Isn't that weird? South Dakota missing out on a white Christmas on all three models except for the northeastern part of the state. And then, of course, the mountains in the west, and including Colorado, really with a good chance of a white Christmas this year. So whether you get a white Christmas or not, Merry Christmas. And then we warm up after Christmas for a little bit. But we'll keep you posted as we go. That's what we do here. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, on the Weather Mic.